Hi there, and welcome to our training today on how you can speak for both income and impact, specifically the three elements to know so that you can go from a commodity speaker to a thought leader so that you can get the types of speaking engagements you want and get better results from the speaking that you're doing. I'm Carol Cox, founder and CEO of Speaking Your Brand. Thank you so much for being with me today. While we're kind of getting warmed up, let me know in the chat where you're watching from. So, what city, and then also what it is that you do. I always like to see who is joining our training. So, let us know there in the chat. I want to say hi to Nicole from Maryland. She's a physician turned health equity consultant and patient advocate. So important. Hi, Paula. Nice to have you joining us from Orlando. Also works in healthcare. And hi, Katie. So nice to see you calling in or calling in. I feel like I'm on the radio watching today live from St. Petersburg, Florida. So nice to see you here as well. All right. So we have an action-packed hour planned here. Hopefully we'll keep the chat active as we go. Let me go ahead and bring my slides up here. All right. So let's get going. So the first thing I would love to know in the chat is a guesstimate. How much time per week do you spend on social media posting? So for your business, for the work that you do as a speaker, as an entrepreneur, for something that you're promoting, how much time per week, so add up the days, do you spend on social media posting, engaging with other people's comments, things like that? Let's see. Hi, Kayla. All right. So I would love to know. And if I'm honest, if I add it up, it's probably more time than I think that it is. All right. Paula's saying 5 to 6 hours per week. Yeah. So maybe about an hour per day. That sounds about right. Katie says 8 to 10 hours. Yeah. Right. Like maybe even 2 hours per day on the weekdays. If we think about, 15, 20-minute chunks of time. Diane says far too much time, about 5 hours per week. Shannon, hi, Shannon. Nice to see you. 4 to 6 hours per week. Let's see. Linda King says 15 hours, right? A lot. Okay, so we're spending a lot of time. Now, next question is, how much time per week are you spending on activities related to public speaking? So that would be searching for speaking engagements, submitting, applying for speaking engagements, reaching out to event organizers. It could even include posting about speaking that you're doing or about speaking that you could be doing. So those types of kind of like business development, visibility activities related to public speaking, how much time per week are you spending on that? Let's see. Hey, Heather, nice to see you. Let's see. Okay, Heather says not enough time per week. Katie says 0, but she's super committed to making that 2 to 5 hours per week. Yeah, like maybe start with 30 minutes a day to an hour a day. Joy says posting once a week. Yeah, for social media. Let's see. Linda says yikes, 2 to 3 hours. All right. So how much time per week are you spending on activities related to public speaking? Shannon says 0. Okay, Heather says she just hired a VA to help. Yeah, right. So if we think about how much time we're spending on social media posting, again, like to advance our businesses, to advance what we're doing speaking wise, but we think about how much time we're actually spending on activities directly related to what we want to do as speakers, we can see there's a big disparity. And here's why I wanted to bring this to your attention today. If we look at the picture on the left-hand side of the screen with the phone, your followers, your audience on their phones, on their laptops, on social media, they're distracted. They're inundated with content, with posts, advertisements, posts from people they follow, posts from people they don't follow. And also, it's algorithm reliant. I mean, I have seen that the algorithms are just making it harder and harder to get our post seen by the people who have chosen to follow us. And as I like to say, I am not going to be dancing on Instagram Reels in order to get my post to be found. That's just not my personality. But if we think about as speakers, whether in person or virtual, we have a captive and engaged audience sitting right in front of us. They're probably not on their phones, or at least they're not as distracted on their phones. They're listening to us. They're seeing us. They're absorbing our content. We have built-in credibility and authority as a speaker standing in front of an audience. Yet we're not spending the same amount of time on that channel of marketing and visibility as we are on social media. So I invite you as you listen today to think about how can you shift some of the time that maybe could be better spent on activities related to public speaking. Because if you're here today, that means that you want to do more speaking, you enjoy public speaking, and you probably want to get better at it. And so that's what we're going to cover today. So, and here's the thing though about having that captive and engaged audience is speaking without key elements that we're going to talk about today won't necessarily get you the results you want. So you can stand in front of an audience and they can listen to you, and you may or may not get the leads or the clients or the additional speaking invitations that you want. So that's why I want to make sure that we cover today. So let me talk to you about a tale of two speaking engagements, kind of like a tale of two cities. So this was a speaking engagement that I did back in 2013. So I did a lot of speaking when I had my technology business from around 2010 to 2014. I was definitely on the speaking circuit in the Central Florida, kind of Orlando, Tampa area. There was this event coming to Tampa called Spark and Hustle, and I really wanted to speak there, but I found out about it a little bit late. They had already selected their speakers, and there were only maybe about 6 or 8 speakers for the entire day's event. But I really wanted to speak there. So I emailed the event organizers and I basically pitched myself and persuaded them to bring me in as a speaker, and they said yes. I was so excited, prepared my content. I was talking about mobile marketing and mobile websites because, again, I had a software and web development company at the time. And I got there and well, first, I'm sitting down there on that chair the entire time. I don't know why. I think I sat on the chair because I had seen other speakers do that, or they had had a panel beforehand. And so I wasn't standing up using the stage. The content that I chose for that audience was not aligned. It was way too technical for who was in that room. And then the offer that I was making, because this was for lead generation, was not aligned at all with that audience. Totally had just no relation to what the women in that audience would need from a web development company. So I didn't get the results that I wanted. And I left there feeling like really like, oh, that was just not a successful speaking engagement. Now, if you've had this experience before, let us know in the chat. Most of us, if we've done enough speaking or will be doing enough speaking, we're going to have those speaking engagements that just don't go the way that we want. And that's okay because I learned so much from that. So let me know in the chat if you can relate to that. So let me contrast this with this other speaking engagement. So this was in 2017. So this is about 4 years later. I had started Speaking Your Brand, the company, in 2015 and kind of went full time with it in early 2017. At this speaking engagement, I completely shifted my understanding of the kind of content I was going to present to this audience. Still women entrepreneurs and professionals. So very similar audience to that 2013 one, but the response and the results were night and day. From this speaking engagement, I got probably 10 clients, some clients who are still with us today, who still come back to us at Speaking Your Brand. I got more speaking invitations from this event, and I created a deep connection with that audience. And there were 3 things that I did differently, which I'm going to show you here today. So if you can relate to this, where you've had a speaking engagement that you just like, yes, I nailed that one. That one was great. Let me know in the chat if you've had one of those as well. So here's what happened with that first speaking engagement in 2013, the one that did not get me the results that I wanted. I was stuck in what I call the expert trap. I was so close to my content, so close to kind of like the nitty gritty nuts and bolts of what I did in my very technical business, that I thought that was what's going to show me I was smart, that I was competent, that I was capable, that I was authoritative on the subject. And then the audience would naturally want to buy from me. But that's not the case. Instead, we need to think about escaping the expert trap and shifting from this idea of being an expert presenter or a commodity speaker into a thought leader, and making sure that your presentation content aligns with that. And so if you are new to Speaking Your Brand, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm Carol Cox, the founder and CEO. And at Speaking Your Brand, we run coaching and training programs. We also have a podcast that is over 5 years old, 290 episodes and counting, that come out every Monday. And we also run events like our Speaking Intensive in-person events, which we're planning already for next spring. Let me quickly introduce you to our team. Our lead speaking coach is Diane Diaz. You see her in the picture there on the bottom right-hand side. She's also in the chat. You can see Joy Spencer in the upper left-hand side. She's in the chat. She's also one of our speaking coaches and storytelling coaches. And then Salita Roberts, who you see in the lower left-hand side, she is our executive assistant and client concierge. She's also an image stylist and very good about helping us, making sure that we look our best when we show up for speaking engagements. So this is the team that you interact with and that you work with when you work with us here at Speaking Your Brand. And I couldn't be more excited and just grateful for the excellent work that they do for all of our clients and for our community. And our mission at Speaking Your Brand is empower women to find and use their voice in the world, to tell the stories that need to be told, and to activate ideas for change, because we have seen that it's through women's stories, voices, and visibility, particularly progressive, diverse women's voices, visibility, and presence, that we can change existing systems to make them better for more people. And as we know, with the recent Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, our voices are more important than ever, so that we are not treated as second-class citizens, that we make sure that we have a public voice and a public presence, and that our stories are being told. And you all, the speaking that you're doing, whatever your industry is, whatever your message is, it all matters. And I have a long background as a Democratic political analyst on TV news since 2005. So I had a public voice and public presence for a long time, and we certainly need more women to do it. And I continue to do this, to go on TV, because you can see from these screenshots, I'm oftentimes the only woman with a panel of men. So I want to make sure that there is a woman's voice out there. Your message and your story matter. And so often as women, we've been socialized and told in our culture and our media to believe that our stories don't matter, or our messages don't matter, or ideas are not as innovative or as important as men's, but they are, because we see time and time again that companies that elevate women into leadership positions, that they have better performance. Governments that elevate women into leadership positions have better performance. And it all starts with you having a public presence and a public voice. So what we'll be covering today is 3 elements that you can use to shift from this idea from being a commodity speaker to a thought leader, what can get in your way, some examples to inspire you, and I'll talk to you about our bonus action guide that you get for attending here live today. And I'll also talk to you about our Thought Leader Academy towards the end. We have enrollment is open for our next start date, which is August 30th, just 2 weeks from today. So I'll let you know about that program. Here's the thing about public speaking. A lot of times we get questions from women in our community or clients who start working with us, and they say, how can I get on the speaking circuit? How can I get better speaking engagements? How can I get paid more to speak? Speaking is the best way to get more speaking, better speaking engagements, and paid speaking engagements. Event organizers who see you speaking in front of a group of people are more likely than to want to bring you on for their event, for their conference, for their company, for their group. So that's what our bonus action guide today is going to help you to supercharge your speaking strategy and to find those speaking engagements. Let me give you some examples here. This was back in 2010, so 12 years ago. I was invited to speak at an internet conference in Orlando. And this was kind of the start of my speaking circuit at the time. So I went and spoke there, and I met 2 other women who also were speaking at that same conference, and we were at the speakers table together all day, so we got to know each other. Well, those 2 women also ran events for their own organizations, and so just by me speaking there and getting to know them, I probably got a dozen more speaking engagements just from that one day over the next 2 years, and I'm still friends with those 2 women. I just saw them in July when I was on vacation. So from that one first speaking engagement in 2010, I did this panel, I did this Orlando Chamber of Commerce event, I did another conference, and a whole bunch more in between. And then in 2012, so about 2 years later, I was on the big stage. And this is what I see time and time again. It's this 2-year period of time, if you're just starting out on the speaking circuit, to start, and then you'll start getting those bigger speaking engagements. Here's another example of that few-year time period. So this was me when I was chairperson of my local Democratic Party, where we were doing a fundraiser for political candidates. Here's the very first time that I was ever on TV in 2005. Again, me, the woman reporter, and a panel of men. Here's again 2006 on TV. Here I am in 2015. And then finally, I was paid as an exclusive political analyst for the NBC affiliate here in Orlando. And that came about because of these relationships that I had built over time. And you can do this too. Here's an example of when I started speaking your brand. This was the very first workshop I did in 2015. And then I did more speaking to kind of get the community to know what I was doing with my new company. Here's me and Diane back. This was probably in 2018. And then another speaking engagement. And then finally at TEDx Orlando in 2018 as one of the speaking coaches, introducing one of the speakers there. Again, from smaller event to bigger stage, about 2 years. Here's Diane with one of her very first speaking engagements when she started her company, The Brand Teacher, before she came on with Speaking Your Brand. Here she is, more workshops on TV, bigger stage, and then finally doing a keynote to about 600 women at the Orlando Women's Conference, again, about a 2-year time period. So it's entirely possible for you to do this. And then finally, coming out of the pandemic, I was named one of Orlando's Women of the Year in 2021, was invited to do a keynote and then another keynote address, and then doing another one this coming October, slowly, as many of us are, getting back into the in-person speaking. So along with up-leveling your skills, whether it's your content, your delivery, your strategy, your pitching, there are some things that we have to unlearn before we can start up-leveling these skills. The first thing to unlearn is that so many of us believe that we need to teach and train to provide value to our audience. So our identity becomes tied to seeing ourselves as the expert with the answers. That was me back at that 2013 speaking engagements where I thought I had to be super technical to seem competent and authoritative. But here's the thing, your audiences are inundated with information all day long. They don't need a lot more information. They need to understand what's possible for themselves and how you can help them get there. Myth number 2 to unlearn is that you may believe that your story is too uncommon or uninteresting or that no one can relate to your story. Or you may think that you don't have a story worth sharing. When women start our Thought Leader Academy, they work on their thought leadership power statement where they talk about their bigger idea, their bigger message, and how their personal story relates to that. And sometimes they have trouble figuring out what personal story do they have? How does any of their story or their personal journey relate to their idea? And trust me, 100% of the time, there is a connection between why you care about what you do and that personal story, whether it's from childhood or adulthood. Your story matters. It's not too uncommon or uninteresting. And trust me, your audience will relate. Myth number 3 to unlearn is that your audience doesn't want to be sold to or that you can't make money from speaking. You absolutely can. We have women who we work with who charge $3,500 for a virtual keynote, $4,500 for a workshop, $10,000 for an in-person keynote. These are numbers that I just heard in the past 2 weeks from women that we work with. You absolutely can make money from speaking, and you can also generate really high quality leads from the speaking that you do. But you have to escape the expert trap in order to do that. All right, so let me talk to you a little bit about Jackie Roby. She went through our Thought Leader Academy in the end of 2020, beginning of 2021. And because of the work that she's been doing around her thought leadership, she's been invited to Dubai to speak at a conference there last fall. And she's going back again this fall, flown business class to Dubai, definitely the way to go. She's also been recognized with different awards. Dr. Christina Madison is a public health pharmacist. She has been on TV news over 200 times since the start of the pandemic. She recently delivered a TEDx talk in May, and you can see the picture there on the left-hand side. And tomorrow, she is going to be appearing on Good Morning America. They flew her to New York City to do a Good Morning America segment. That is the power of thought leadership and putting yourself out there. So here are those 3 elements you need as a speaker to generate the impact and the income that you want: structure, storytelling, and selling. And yes, they are 3 S's because we love alliteration and acronyms here at Speaking Your Brand. And so when you work with us, when we work with you on your framework, we will probably come up with an acronym or an alliteration or a visual shape to go along with it. So let's talk about structure. When you are presenting content to your audience, you don't want to be all over the map. You need to pick a spot and you need to stay there. As someone who's an expert in your business, you know a lot of information. You've been doing it for 10, 20 or more years. And even though you want to, because of your generosity, to have your audience understand everything you understand about your topic, they can't in 30 or 45 minutes or an hour. There's just no way. You have to give them the right level of content for where they're at. And again, invite them to think differently, to think bigger about your topic. I liken all of your ideas to these long, winding branches of an oak tree. And if you can relate to this oak tree as where you feel like all of your ideas are, let me know in the chat, put in yes, where you think of these ideas and you're like, yes, and I have this one and I can talk about this, and I have this one over here and I have this one over here. And oak trees are beautiful, but they're not helpful for your presentation content because it's just too overwhelming. As I like to say, you can always write a book after you work on your speech for all the things that you couldn't fit in your talk. So instead of the oak tree, what I want you to think about for your presentations is a palm tree. Palm trees have that one solid trunk, and then they have branches at the top that hang off of it. But there's not a gazillion branches. There's just the right number of them. And that's what I want you to think about for your presentation. Think of that trunk as your through line. Everything you talk about has to hang off of that through line. And if it doesn't fit tightly to that through line, put it in the parking lot. You can come back to it later, or you can put it in your book. Here's an example of a client that I worked with years ago. This was her original slide deck. Now you can see lots of text on the slide deck, kind of difficult for the audience to go through this. As you can imagine, she was standing in front of the audience delivering this speech. The audience is trying to read this very small font. So not a great use of slides. We need more images. But in addition to just the slide design, lacking is that there was too much content. There was no structure, no beginning, middle, and end. And she kind of got lost in the weeds because there was no flow to what she was talking about. There was no logical progression. So instead, we worked on the structure of her speech, and then she hired a graphic designer to do the slides. But in addition to the slides looking much better, her content was much more focused and relevant. It was thought leadership. She asked the audience question, and she had a clear call to action at the end because she was doing this for lead generation. And here's the thing, no matter how long you've been speaking, whether you're just starting out, you've been doing it for a few years, or you're a seasoned pro, all speakers need structure. If you've seen the TV series Hacks, let me know in the chat. I started watching it just a few weeks ago. I'm a little bit behind from when it came out. It's on HBO Max, and I love it. It is so fun. The main actress there, Jean Smart, she plays a comedian. And so in the show, she's kind of like, getting older. And so they don't want to kind of continue to have her showcase in Vegas. So she goes through all of these things. But in it, she has a young woman who ends up coming to work with her to help write her jokes, to write her comedy set. And as you can see through the episodes that they're very intentional about the storytelling and the jokes that they put in. But it's not just willy-nilly. They don't just drop jokes here one after the other. Instead, they have a structure. They have a beginning and middle and end, and they want to make sure everything ties together. So yeah, let me know if you like Hacks, because it's so fun. I think we're almost done with season 2, and I just heard that they're bringing out season 3. So excited for that. So here's how we help you with the structure of your talk. We have our signature talk canvas framework, which is what I came up with about 5 years ago after working with about a dozen clients and realizing that I was getting to the same place with them by asking them a series of questions and putting their speeches together in a similar way. So it's based on 3-act story structure and the hero's journey with kind of marketing and sales techniques interwoven through it as well. And the thing with the framework is that it gives you a guideline, a place to go versus staring at a blank slide deck or a blank document and wondering, how am I supposed to start my talk? How am I supposed to end it? What am I supposed to put in the middle? Where am I supposed to put my bio, my information about me? So this is where the framework comes in, and it's so incredibly helpful. And the reason that our clients are so successful in their talks is because they use this framework, because they don't just decide to wing it, which you don't want to do in your presentations, or just decide to slap a bunch of content together. You need to have a structure, and that's what our framework provides. Here's one of our Thought Leader Academy grads, Shanta Wilkinson. She's a DEI consultant, trainer, and speaker. And when she came through the Thought Leader Academy, she really appreciated having this framework to give her this place to go with her content, with her training. She has a lot of trainings and workshops, and to integrate her personal stories into it as well. So, as we think about structure, I want you to ask yourself, what's the through line and the number one takeaway for the audience in your presentation? Do you have a clear beginning, middle, and end? And what are you sharing that's new or different in your content? All right, let's go on to a second element here, which is storytelling. These are the four essential ingredients that I see for thought leadership. Your foundation is your expertise, it's what you know really well regarding your topic. The next level up from that is your big idea. What is it that you want to see change in your industry or a society as a whole? What do you want to see that's different? Then the third level is your story, your personal story, your personal journey. And then that fourth level is the emotional courage to share it. The hardest part is your story and really digging deep to find the emotional heart of your story and being willing to share it. And when I talk about your story, I don't mean kind of like the superficial rags to riches, kind of glossing over the hard parts, which a lot of us tend to do. Instead, really digging deep, because that's where you're going to find the real connection with your audience. So for those of you in the chat, let me know if you feel like you have a story, like you know what your story is that you would share, or if you feel like you're not sure which one it could be. That maybe you have a few of them, or you're not sure if you really have a compelling story at all. Let me know in the chat. So here's my question to you, and if you're maybe shying away from this idea of sharing your story, my question to you is, do you want to offer a transformative experience for your clients and your audience? Because in order to provide that transformative experience, that deep storytelling is what is necessary. Our client, Tammy Lally, she spoke at TEDx Orlando in 2017, and she talked about money shame. And she stood on that stage for 8.5 minutes and shared a very raw and vulnerable personal story about a family tragedy. She dug deep. It wasn't easy. And she did it because she knew that she wanted to be able to help other people. Because she did this, her TEDx talk now has over 2 million views, which is very unusual. Most TEDx talks get maybe a few thousand views. There are 25,000 TEDx talks that happen every year. And so for one like Tammy's to have over 2 million views is extraordinary. And it's because not only did she put the work in, but we used our framework. So again, it wasn't willy-nilly. She didn't just tell a story. We used the framework to make sure that she was taking the audience on a journey so that they could understand and relate to her story and understand what money shame is and maybe how it impacts them. And I know that for so many of us, especially as high achieving women and high achieving women in a patriarchal society, it's hard for us to not want to present as perfect. And I'm not really talking about perfectionism. That's kind of its own thing, but it's related. But even still, as women, when we're standing on a stage, we don't want to seem incompetent or like imposters, like maybe we shouldn't be there. And so we may shy away from wanting to share stories that make us seem imperfect or that we had things that happened to us in the past that maybe we don't would think that are not going to look good on us. But characters, and as a storyteller, you're presenting a character in a sense, with flaws are so much more interesting. Perfect is boring. This is why I love the musical Hamilton. If you're a Hamill fan, let me know in the chat. And I like Aaron Burr's character the most out of all of them because he is so flawed. And not only is he so flawed, but he's so willing to share his flaws as he goes through the different numbers that he does. This screenshot here is from the song In the Room Where It Happens. And in the beginning of the song, he's very sedate, like he's got it together. He's gonna just stay calm. He wants to be in the room where it happens, but he's gonna just kind of like find a way. By the end of the song, he is just so frustrated. He is like dancing like crazy, like on the table. He's just letting it all loose because he's like basically showing his emotions on his sleeve. And that's what I want you to do with your storytelling. I want you to show your emotions on your sleeve. And of course, I can't do a man from Hamilton without doing a woman. Here's Eliza Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton's wife, and she's really the emotional heart of the musical because she very much shows her emotions and her heartache. and she provides that deep connection with the audience as well. As speakers, you can do the same thing. When I delivered a keynote last September, this is my first in person after the pandemic has started. And I stood in front of that. There was a luncheon for a fundraiser. And I stood there in front of the room and I decided to share a story about a very heartbreaking professional event that had happened to me about 15 years ago. This professional event was so hard for me at the time that I lost my voice and my confidence and my purpose for years afterwards. And I didn't realize until later is because I didn't really have that supportive community that I needed at the time to kind of bounce back from that. But I shared that story. And when I did, you literally could hear a pin drop in that room. Everyone kind of stopped eating. They stopped, that little kind of chatter that goes on when people are eating lunch and kind of listening to a luncheon speaker. And it was silent. And they were paying attention. Because even though none of them had been in local politics before, none of them had had that same experience I had had, they could relate to this idea of feeling like that backlash and feeling like they lost their confidence and maybe lost their purpose for a period of time. And that's how the more detailed you are in your storytelling, the more relatable it actually is. So I want you to ask yourself, what's a personal story that you can share? How can you go even deeper into that story, into that emotional heart of it? And then how can you frame that story to align with your overall message that you want to share in your presentation? And so when you work with us in our Thought Leader Academy, we help you define and develop your best idea and your story. That is the core of what we're helping you to do, in addition to helping you create your entire signature talk as well as your visibility strategy. Let's get to the third element of speaking. So we covered structure, we covered storytelling. The third one is around selling. So now I want to know, how do you feel about selling? Are you like cat number one, like, yay, can't wait to do it, I love it? Or are you like cat number two, where you're like, nope, don't want to do it, feel super awkward, feel super uncomfortable, don't want to make an offer in my presentations, don't want to feel like I'm being salesy? Let me know in the chat. Are you number one or are you number two? And I love these memes so much because cat number two is obviously a real cat that they, just did that to make his head shake back and forth. But you can see a cat doing that. Whereas you will never see a cat super excited, which is why they had to make it a cartoon character. Okay. Nicole says number one, but she was number two for years. Katie says one most days. Okay. Yeah. Two, says Sarah. Michelle says, and she's in between the cats. Maybe it depends on the day, which sounds kind of like what a cat would say. All right. So I used to be like number two. I'm with you there. But really, I am number one now. And the reason that I actually enjoy selling is I feel like I'm providing a service to the person at the other end. Now, if they choose not to buy, that's okay. But at least I'm helping them be aware of what is possible for them, how they can get that help, that support, that accountability that they desire to achieve their goals. So that's, maybe it will help you to reframe this idea of selling if you are in the number two camp, to think about it as a service that you're doing to the person on the other side. And then includes to your audience who you're in front of. So here's how I think about the business of speaking and how you can make revenue from speaking, from generating leads and clients from your presentations, from charging for the workshops and trainings that you're doing, and from charging for keynote speaking. Here's what I see a lot is that the leads and clients from your presentations, because your content is a little bit too technical and tactical, you're missing out on potential leads that you can get from your presentations. This week's episode of the Speaking Your Brand podcast, episode 290, is an on-air coaching call. And we talk about specifically how my guest and Thought Leader Academy client, Monica Young, can get more leads from the presentations that she's doing. So that's a great podcast episode to listen to. What I also see is that so many of you are not charging enough for workshops and trainings. Maybe you're basically doing lead gen presentations, but you're doing them as workshops. So you're giving away way too much content for free, or you're undercharging for workshops and trainings. And the same thing for keynote speaking, you're undercharging for it a lot. That's why when we work with our clients, we are very open and transparent about what we charge for our speaking and workshops, and we encourage them to share that with each other. So you have a baseline, you have an understanding of what going rates are for these different types of speaking engagements. Here is one of our alumni, Angela Hosking. She worked with us a couple of years ago in 2019. And then in 2020, even in the midst of the pandemic, she got 8 paid speaking engagements and she 5x'd her speaking fee based on what she learned by working with us, but also by building the confidence to be able to charge more. And here's what I want you to do is when you think about putting together your presentations for lead generation is plant sales seeds along the way. Now you may notice that I've been doing that in this webinar today. And this is why I like for you all to come and watch what we do in our webinars because it's very meta. Like you'll see us use the structure, you'll see us use the storytelling, you'll see us using the selling techniques like planting these sales seeds, talking about our past clients, mentioning the work that we do in the Thought Leader Academy, mentioning why clients come to us and how we help them. So you can do the same thing in your presentations, in your content. Plant those sales seeds along the way. Here's the example from Monica Young. That's that on-air coaching call that's out this week. And so after we recorded the call, I gave her actually the audio recording even before it came out because we recorded it a few weeks ago. So she wouldn't listen to that and listen to also the coaching calls that she had done with Diane Diaz, our lead speaking coach. And after doing that, she reworked her talk and she did it several days later and she got 3 high quality leads just from doing a 15-minute lead generation presentation. That's what a difference it made by taking what she had learned from us. So I want you to ask yourself as you look at your presentations, are you planting sales seeds along the way? Also, do you know what your speaking fee is? If someone came to you right now and asked, I would love for you to do a workshop for us or for you to do a keynote talk for us, do you know what you would charge? And would you be charging enough? And then are you prepared for a conversation with an event organizer about your fee to stand, in confidence in the amount that you would charge? Here's the thing. The time is now to get prepared and to get on the speaking circuit. We're coming out of the pandemic. Events and conferences are eager to get back into in-person. Some are still doing hybrid. There'll still be virtual opportunities as well, but so many want to get back to in-person. And because also there are so many companies that still have work from home policies where a lot of their employees are working remotely, but they want to bring them together in person. And that's where companies are going to be doing events. These conferences, associations, and groups are going to be doing events. And guess what? They need speakers. And that's where you come in. So work on these 3 things to make sure that you're getting the results that you want from your speaking: the structure, the storytelling, and the selling. And ultimately, doing these things will help you to escape that expert trap of being a commodity speaker. The problem with being a commodity speaker is that you're interchangeable and you're undifferentiated. And this is why commodity speakers tend not to get paid or not to get paid very well from their speaking, because from the event organizer's perspective, whether they hire you or someone else who talks on your topic, they're pretty much interchangeable because they feel like their audience is going to learn XYZ from either speaker. So maybe they're going to go with whoever is a little bit lower priced. Once you position yourself as a premium speaker and as a thought leader, you can charge more. You'll start getting inbound speaking invitations from event organizers because they see that you're different from the other speakers. You're different in your content and you're different in your storytelling and your delivery. And this is the shift that you make in our Thought Leader Academy, is shifting from expert presenter to a story speaker and a thought leader. As I mentioned at the top, enrollment is open now for our next start date of August 30th, which is 2 weeks from the live recording of today. And I would love for you to submit an application if you would like to have a conversation about your goals, your speaking goals, what you've been doing so far with speaking, what areas you would like to get help on, and then how the Thought Leader Academy could be a good fit for you. These are the things that we work on together. So your big idea and your story, your signature talk. So we have our framework and you work on your signature talk using the poster board and all the Post-it notes, and you literally map it out from the very beginning to the very end with everything in between. Your visibility strategy, how to monetize your speaking and your delivery and your preparation as well. We have weekly group Zoom calls that happen with an incredible group of women. And as you see from the chat, and if you've been around speaking your brand for a while, or you've listened to the guests and our clients on our podcast, you know what amazing women that they are. So you get to have these weekly group Zoom calls with them and with us, our coaches. So me, Diane, and Joy. You also get a VIP day, a virtual VIP day to create your signature talk. So that imagine having your signature talk done in 3 hours. It is possible. We've done it hundreds of times. It's magical and it's extremely effective. No more like waiting weeks and weeks and weeks and wondering how to put your talk together. We get it done. You also have on-demand video lessons that you have access to, lifetime access to in Thinkific on everything from speaking proposals to speaking fees, speaking contracts, your thought leadership message, preparation and delivery, everything that we cover a lot in the live group Zoom calls, but you also have on-demand trainings, video trainings you can watch along with the slides and PDFs. As we hear time and time again from the women who've gone through the Thought Leader Academy, they say it's the best investment they've made as a speaker and as an entrepreneur. We put our heart and soul into this program. We've run it now continuously since October of 2020. And we just love the women who come through it and seeing the progress that they make and the confidence that they build. So we have 3 different tiers for the Thought Leader Academy. You can get all this information on the page of speakingyourbrand.com/academy as well. So with tier 1, you get the full academy. So all those weekly group Zoom calls for 16 weeks. So it's 4 months you're with us, on-demand video trainings, the templates, the scripts, the PDFs, and so on. Plus you get a small group VIP day to create your signature talk using our framework. So that's your coach, and then you and 2 other women in the academy come together on that 3-hour Zoom call to work on your talk. It is so effective. Tier 2 is if you want to do a one-on-one VIP day with Diane, you can do that at the tier 2 level. The tier 3 level is if you want to do a one-on-one VIP day with me. So there are limited spots as of right now, as of the time live right now. I only have 1 spot available for tier 3 with me. Diane has 2 spots available for tier 2 with her. So if you want to do that, definitely get your application in today so that we can schedule that Zoom call with you to talk through your application. So you may be thinking, well, this sounds great, but maybe I'll do it later in the fall or I'll do it next year. And sure, you can certainly do that. There's no pressure. You can do this when you feel the time is right. But I will say this, events are booking their speakers for the fall and definitely already for next spring. So you want to make sure you're getting on their roster. The other thing is that we see time and again, women are leaving money on the table by not charging enough for their keynotes, for their workshops, for their trainings, and so on. So making sure that you're charging enough for your speaking and really differentiating yourself and your business with your thought leadership message is going to help you not just with your speaking, but for everything that you do in your business. It is such a powerful foundation for all of the content that you put out there. So I invite you to apply for the Thought Leader Academy. That's the speakingyourbrand.com/academy. You can get all the details. There's a button there to apply. Submit your application. After you do that, you'll get a scheduling link where you can book the 30-minute Zoom call with either myself or with Diane. Again, we'll go through your application, answer all the questions you have, make sure the Thought Leader Academy is the best fit for you, and get you signed up for our August 30th start date. I would love to know if there's any questions in the chat. I know I've been kind of busy going through the slides, so I haven't been looking through the chat here. So let me see let me go back here. Michelle says she struggles with planting the sales seeds. Yeah, share your questions if you have any right now as I go through this. I'm going to say hi, Salita. Hi, Kayla. They're also Speaking Your Brand team members. Let me go. Let's see. Nicole Rochester says she has a story. Yes, Nicole, you definitely have a story. I know that. Michelle has stories, but wonders if they're good enough. Michelle, I know your stories and I know they're good. Paula, I know you definitely have a story because we chatted a few weeks ago and you have an incredible story to share and such a powerful message that will help so many people. Let's see. All right. And looking back through the chat, let me know if you have any questions about anything that we covered today. And yeah. Oh, Katie Woodrick says seeing her Orlando TV friends on screen. Yes, I know you were in Orlando a long time. Okay. Katie asked, how much support is there for finding opportunities to submit and apply to? So Katie, so we give you our kind of guidelines and what we do to find and to search for and to submit for speaking opportunities. So you're still doing the legwork on your end. You can either have a VA assistant do it or you can do it yourself, but we're going to give you kind of what we do. So our approach to finding speaking engagements. And then what happens in the weekly group Zoom calls is that some of them are mini trainings, some of them are open coaching Q&A, and some of them are mastermind hot seats. So you can bring what you're working on to those calls and get feedback from us as your coaches, but also feedback from the other women as well on your speaking proposals, on speaking fees, on your pitches. Maybe there's certain groups or organizations that you're looking for. Here's the other kind of thing. In addition to speaking, getting you more speaking, speakers get gigs from other speakers because speakers are already on the speaking circuit. When an event organizer asks them, who do you recommend as our next speaker? They're more likely to recommend someone who they know and who that they've seen on the speaking circuit. So that's another thing to keep in mind as far as making sure that you're getting on there. Also, the bonus action guide that you're getting for attending live today, we're going to send that out to you in an email once we're done today. So that's a PDF. It's action packed. There's actually some Loom screen share videos as well that show you how we go through and search and find speaking engagements. Yes. What other questions do we have? Oh, wait a second. I mentioned that story earlier about that professional setback I had about 15 years ago and how I lost my voice and I lost my confidence and my purpose for several years after that. And it was at that keynote that I was delivering last September where I shared that story that I literally had an aha moment as I was talking, like literally as I was talking to that audience. And I said out loud, oh, this is why I started Speaking Your Brand, because I needed this community, this supportive community of other women who are putting themselves out there. I needed that, and I didn't have it at the time. And I didn't realize when I was building Speaking Your Brand, when I started in 2015, I thought I was just building a business that I was going to love, which I do, but I didn't realize how deep that thread was back to that earlier experience. And I think you'll find the same as well. Yeah. How does the Thought Leader Academy help with speaking confidence? So here's what I hear from the women on our weekly group Zoom calls is that they see what the other women are doing. It inspires them and motivates them to think bigger, to go bigger what they're doing. But also it validates so much of what are normal feelings that we have. Feeling nervous, feeling uncertain about what we're doing, feeling like we don't know if if our content is good enough or if our stories are good enough, or should we be charging more? Is it outrageous to charge $4,500 for a workshop? So when they get feedback and they get that support and they get that validation, it builds their confidence so much. In addition to having their talk done, they don't feel anymore like confused about what content should they put, how should they open it, how should they ask the audience questions, where should they put their story. So they have that expert guidance from us as well as that supportive community from the other women. Okay, Michelle wants to ask, is it too late to apply for speaking opportunities for the rest of 2022? I would say no. So we're in middle of August right now. And if you think about events that are happening in, say, October or early November, a lot of them may have speakers already lined up, but you may not know if they have speakers. Sometimes their speakers back out. Emergencies happen, family things happen, they decide they can't do it, travel, what have you. So absolutely still build relationships with event organizers, still do searches for call for speakers for conferences in 2022, because they may still be out there. Start with your local community and kind of go from there as far as finding those speaking opportunities, especially for the rest of this year. And Michelle and the rest of you, even if you reach out to some event organizers and they say they already have speakers, guess what? Now they know your name. They know that you're interested in speaking. So if a slot becomes available, or if a speaker has to back out, or as they start planning for 2023, you're going to come to mind because they've already had some interaction with you. All right, what other questions do we have? Well, we are making great time today. I'm so grateful that you all are here. Let me put into the chat here the direct link where you can apply for the Thought Leader Academy. So submit the application form. Just answering the application questions will probably help you a lot. I always know when I start answering questions that other people have posed to me, it gives me a lot of clarity and a lot of insight. So even just doing that, submit that. schedule your 30-minute Zoom call with us so that we can go over it. And we are not high pressure sales. You probably know that if you know us. We really just enjoy getting to know women like you, having a conversation, figuring out, is this a good fit for you? When would be a great time for you to do it? What are your goals? And is this gonna work well for what you have in mind? Okay. How Thought Leader Academy helps with wording, speaking pitches. Yes. Great question. So, when you are pitching yourself for a speaking opportunity or putting together a speaking proposal, you have your title and you have your session description and you have your bio that you're doing as well. And you want to make sure that those are really impactful, that the title is specific and interesting and results oriented, that the description kind of builds upon itself and leads the audience to want to learn more, and that your bio connects your credibility to your topic. So we give you our guidance and templates and examples on that, but then you can bring them to the group calls or you can post them in Mighty Networks, which is the community that we use, the private community that you get access to when you join the Thought Leader Academy. So you submit what you're working on, and then myself or Diane or Joy or the other women in the group will give you feedback to make them that much stronger. We also provide you with templates and scripts for doing cold outreach to event organizers, to doing outreach for getting introductions to people, like to other event organizers. So we help you by kind of giving you those things that you can then customize for yourself. Connie wants to ask about joining NSA, so the National Speakers Association. I would say definitely go check it out. I have never been a member of the National Speakers Association, but I know I have colleagues and friends who have. And I don't know if there's a chapter here in Orlando where I live. That's probably why I haven't investigated it very much. I think there may be a chapter over in the Tampa area, but if there's a local chapter, go to it, see if it's kind of the vibe in the group is what you like. Figure out, is that something that, is something that you want to do? I don't know anything about their membership dues or their benefits, but it's always worth checking out these different groups and seeing if it's a good fit for what you want to do. But I will say that it's not a requirement. I'm not a member. Diane has never been a member, and we've gotten plenty of speaking opportunities over the years. All right. What other questions do we have before we wrap up here today? Thank you all for participating in the chat. It's been a lot of fun. If you have any questions that we didn't get a chance to cover today, the best thing to do is submit your application for the Thought Leader Academy. We can go over your questions in that Zoom call, or you can send me an email, carolcox@speakingyourbrand.com. All right, everyone. Well, we're going to wrap. We're going to let you go early today. How exciting is that? Thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your day and your week, and hope to talk to you soon. Bye.